Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Mario Kiriakou, and I'm looking forward to run us through today's topic, which is unlocking the future of banking with AI-powered account-based marketing. So today's session is recorded. You'll get a copy of this in the next couple of days, along with the slides. For those of you on the call who are not familiar with who Ratio is, though I do recognize an awful lot of people on today's call, but I appreciate not everyone knows who we are. So Ratio is a digital experience consultancy. So we do quite a lot of work with large global B2B businesses around optimizing digital experiences, including looking at implementing ABM strategies, lead scoring, personalization, etc. We've got quite a lot to cover off today, but if I had to bucket into a couple of key segments, we're going to look at defining your ABM approach. We're going to have a look at areas such as understanding who your ideal customer is as a big part of defining ABM programs, especially for larger, more complex businesses looking to target multiple sectors. We're going to look at some of the typical challenges and blockers that we see. And we're going to finish off with a look at the role that AI will increasingly play in the rollout and support of ABM programs. So we're going to have a look at some of the foundations first, before going on to some of the more advanced areas, because one of the things we find in our experience is we could talk about content personalization, the type of messaging we should send to different types of targets, whether they're named accounts or sectors. But actually, a lot of the success of any type of ABM program is in the initial strategy and alignment with your various teams and just getting that off the ground. So we're going to have a look at some of the basics. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the marketers on today's call, because I can see there's plenty of B2B marketers who we've worked with in the past, are probably quite familiar broadly with what is a ABM program. So we're not going to dwell too much on it, but I think for just setting the scene, it probably makes sense just to look at what are some of the key components that form part of defining and, I suppose, delivering your account-based marketing plans for the future. So there's, broadly speaking, you can bucket an ABM program into three core segments. So one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many. And we're going to talk about those in a little bit more detail shortly, but it's important to look at those for a couple of reasons, because especially if you're from a relatively large, complex business with large marketing teams, trying to narrow down what a program could look like can be half the challenge. And looking at the sort of tiering aspect of putting accounts into different segments is part of the key ways of looking at this. So what do we mean by this? And what are these three tiers in practicality? Now, from our experience, the most successful type of organizations that we've worked with in the past who have implemented ABM plans and done well in terms of seeing uplift in sort of key metrics like revenue are ones who have looked at all three tiers and looked at how they can be blended into a holistic ABM plan. But to break this down, one-to-one is the completely personalized approach to ABM management. This is where you have a narrow, defined core list of accounts. Perhaps these are your top 10 sort of global businesses that you're looking to build relationships with. These tend to be, hyper small segments. For some organizations, they don't even go as deep as this. Some of the challenges and one of the reasons why you keep these at a relatively small level is that this is hyper targeted, this is hyper customization. This is not just all personalization across the website. This is looking at personalizing every engagement and interaction that you have with a target company, from the emails that you produce to the collateral that you create to the messaging that you have across your various digital channels and offline channels as well. And the reason why it tends to be quite small, because it adds complexity, as a higher level of investment, and obviously in terms of larger businesses looking to manage the completely personalized approach, the role of marketing tech, how it's integrated, how it's leveraged, how it's tracking those target accounts. And when we say target accounts, we are obviously referring to named companies, but in reality, what we're also referring to are the multiple individuals within that company that we are looking to track within that account and their engagement with us. So things like marketing technology play a far stronger role in that sort of completely personalized approach. The next section, the one to few, is where we can scale our ABM programs to a higher level, still being very personalized. In our experience, when looking to define these set of accounts, I mean, we've put here, an example 1 to 500, but this varies depending on the size and type of the business that you are in. But at this area and in this sort of point, this is where sometimes it is named accounts, but also this is where sector-based personalization, sector-based targeting also plays a big role, especially in terms of customer acquisition through advertising campaigns. If you're implementing things like targeted LinkedIn advertising, there are at times limits to how granular you can get with your targeting. But if you take a step back, if target organization is based on sector, the customer acquisition part becomes simpler and more scalable. But in this area, we're looking at how we can tailor copy messaging to those accounts or sectors at a far higher level. And the third tier is the partially personalized approach. Perhaps this is looking at custom landing pages based on sort of key attributes that we're able to track within our digital systems. It could be based on the sector, it could be based on location, it could be based on the type of campaigns which have driven individuals to our digital channels. So this is a broader based approach, and we typically see organizations leveraging this sort of approach. The ones we work with are the ones where you are sort of, I suppose, larger, more global, and looking to target a broader range of companies, and therefore you want to have hyper targeted one-to-one messaging, but realistically you need to drive larger overall revenue amounts over the course of the year. So which is why we say building a program around the 3 tiers is important. Chances are you probably have a pretty good idea about the types of companies that you want to engage with, that are likely to deliver the type of relationships and revenue that you want as a business. But a couple of the key things that we see as a business in terms of how you can define your ideal customer profile offline. And then in the next webinar, we're going to look at, from a technology point of view, how we translate these what are offline customer models onto your sort of digital platform, so you can begin to marry up and track individuals based on these profiles. But in terms of defining, we see a couple of key areas which are around fit, intent, relationship, and engagement. And around these, we utilize data such as intent data. So this is one of the key elements for selecting things like target accounts. So identifying which are ones who are most likely to be your ideal customers based on analyzing your existing customer profile, the type of clients you work with, whether based on sector, based on overall customer lifetime value. Looking at the intent, so looking at your intent data. So this is looking at, for example, type of multiple counts that multiple contacts you might have from a target account engaging with your digital channels. Looking at the relationship, trying to understand the context and previous history of outreach or engagement with your business, and then using these to define your 4 to 5 key customer profiles that you use as part of defining and building that program. Account selection is key in banking in terms of defining an ABM program. One of the common refrains that we get is where when we speak to some of our financial services clients is that we've got a strong understanding of the sectors that we want to be going after, but naming physical accounts as part of an ABM strategy can be far more complex. So just to cover off what this can look like in, I suppose, practical terms, um, obviously we want to align this with ideal customer profile, but this means targeting companies that closely match our criteria. So as I mentioned, things like industry, revenue size, pain points, buying behaviors. Next, we want to try and prioritize high value potential accounts. So these are the ones that will not only have significant revenue potential, but also a strong likelihood of becoming long-term customers. This can also be for existing customers. So I think there's a tendency to think of ABM as something to acquire net new customers who have no engagement with our business, but we can also build an ABM stream around the existing customers that we work with. And in many cases, this can be, I hate the phrase low-hanging fruit, but it could be a low-hanging fruit in terms of we have additional services that we could sell to this organization. Perhaps they're not aware of all the things we do. Perhaps they're into different geographies that we want to expand for them with. So there's another aspect to ABM in terms of account selection, which is, identifying existing customers. To further narrow down our selections, we can utilize techniques like buying intent signals. By leveraging intent data tools, we can identify accounts that are actively researching solutions similar to ours. Additionally, it's important to ensure we have access to key decision makers within the target accounts. So this access allows us to engage with them effectively in terms of, personalized messaging that speaks to their needs. We typically see ABM programs being led, project managed, championed by marketing. But the ones we see as the most successful ones are the ones where there's a close alignment with your sales team or existing customer relationship team, whatever term you use for managing those sort of direct relationships with customers. And in our experience, this can be more than just the typical marketing sales approach, which is marketing generates, inquiries and then hands them off to a different offline team to then engage with those potential customers. We see the best alignment when it's two areas. One, cross-functional, so that multiple layers within marketing and sales are involved. But we see the greatest success in terms of where sales are fully aligned in terms of the context around what an ABM approach has been to acquire that prospect at the account level. What type of marketing campaigns have been sent? What was the messaging? What was the content? And in leveraging that to help identify potential intent around the product or services that may be of interest to that customer, and sharing those with those offline customer relationship teams so that they are as aligned with marketing in terms of what drove the interest for those account teams. Those target prospect customers. Another aspect around involving sales at each step is around establishing shared goals, roles, responsibilities, and metrics, which we're going to talk about later on as well. Getting your data ready. So one of the areas that we see as super important is knowing your current data. In terms of what do you have, auditing your systems, the data, whether it's held across multiple marketing platforms, just looking at the type of information that you currently have around customers, prospects, people engage with you, and then utilizing that to try and build out those target profiles of who you want to be going after. So, asking yourself within your systems, do you track things like or have an understanding around basic account data, so revenue companies make, how many employees do they have, what type of industry do they sit into, where are they located? And this fits into when we look to try and define either named accounts or potential prospects based on different attributes like sectors, so we can begin to bucket them up. We mentioned intent data before, so using the behavior of target accounts to indicate whether they're more qualified based on areas such as keyword research around related products that you may have. So, and some core data around engagement data. So this could be as simple as looking at the type of data that's captured within your forms. And then utilizing this to begin to tier those targets into those three groups that we mentioned before: one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many. The one-to-ones could be as little as 5 to 10 accounts, and the tier three could be potentially in the hundreds or more. But utilizing your data once you've altered it to then understand who you want to go after once you've spoken to your wider teams, and placing those into those segments. And it's important to tier those accounts, because then you could begin to allocate resources, whether that's money, time, people, etc. And a third area which gets overlooked in terms of data is the fact that data on target accounts and also on named individuals within those accounts will degrade over time. So do you have a quality and discovery strategy in place to identify new contacts? Are people getting promoted? Are they leaving roles? How are we maintaining top quality data in order to support our ABM plans? ABM analytics are a little bit different from traditional B2B demand generation analytics. While leads and opportunities are essential for B2B marketing, they're probably insufficient to measure account-based marketing plans. So ABM requires specific account-based metrics. Um, Typically ABM occurs at every stage of the funnel, unlike lead-based metrics, which are typically more focused on net new business creation. ABM takes far more time to show results, and that's a big area. ABM takes more time to get off the ground, and it's something which, for results to happen, needs to be treated as a longer engagement, longer plan than, say, 2 to 3 months. Meaning we need metrics that show real progress within sort of larger, more complex organizations that we're targeting, as well as ABM metrics around quality, not quantity, as the focus shifts to engaging with target accounts. Quantity based metrics, may go down. And so which metrics matter? So think about what matters to your team for building relationships with the right people, the right accounts. You want decision makers who know who your company are, and more importantly, the problems that you solve for that company. Hence, engagement analytics is an ABM metric that measures relationship quality, not the quantity. The answer to that fundamental question: are we creating and deepening the relationship within those target accounts? Oh, just 1 second. I've just had a error with PowerPoint. Give me 1 more second and I will just restart PowerPoint. Apologies for this, just rebooting PowerPoint. We share my screen. 2 seconds. Funnel dynamics using key metrics of sort of balance, volume, flow of conversions, and velocity of those sort of conversations as they engage with your digital channels. So these are the typical leading indicators that show when and how and why an account becomes aware and engaged with you as an organization. And the final part is around attribution analytics. A typical question we see come up time and time again is, did our program have any form of impact? So did the effort justify the investment? And putting in place attribution analytics plays a key part in helping you make better and more informed decisions around budget allocation. Another part is around trying to track all meaningful activities for each of the contacts within your target account. So typically, the data sources that we see are sort of around websites, visits by accounts using tools like, reverse IP tools, marketing automation platforms like Pardot, Eloqua, HubSpot, etc. Looking at email opens, attendance to any sort of events you run, looking at the type of content that people have engaged with, downloaded, um, CRM data, looking at sort of the activities and engagement with marketing campaigns. And from our perspective, it's important to look at your various different systems and understand, do you have the technological capability to track what is a meaningful activity? Typically, sales tools such as CRMs track, loads of interactions. So this can be relatively straightforward to pull in, depending on the complexity of your business. But one of the key insights that we find is that we want to track and identify qualified accounts. So, typically marketers might talk about marketing qualified leads, which is more at the individual level. But for an ABM program, we prefer to refer to marketing qualified accounts, because ultimately, if we're looking to target, say, either a BP, for example, it's not a single individual who we are looking to persuade. It could be 4 to 5 individuals. So it's tracking the engagement of those individuals at the account level, and therefore at the account level across our digital channels as well. We've got a couple of challenges we're going to talk about that we see holding back organizations, especially around scaling. A basic one, defining ABM. It's quite surprising how often this comes up in conversation, that we see different individuals within companies that we work with interpreting what an ABM plan is differently. And again, this is a challenge because it can lead to confusion between different teams if everyone is not singing from the same hymn sheet. The other part is around measuring ROI. Ultimately, ABM to succeed, because it does require more effort. You can instinctively believe that if you are more targeted, relevant, contextual, personalized to a segment of a highly defined, company accounts or targets, or even based on sector, that you will drive revenue. But at the end of the day, if you can't measure that impact, then it's hard to build a business case for further investment, or even for justifying the existing program that's running. One that we see is resource constraints. So it doesn't matter how small or big your marketing team is, everyone has limited time and resources. People are typically already busy doing their day-to-day jobs, and adding additional programs does add additional stress onto teams. So how do we work around that? How do we work within the limitations of existing structures? The other two areas are tech infrastructure gaps. I mean, when you're looking to start, perhaps this is less of an issue, but as you become more sophisticated with your ABM programs, having those gaps with your marketing technology can be an issue. One of the common areas is with data gaps, lack of data integration. So sharing web data, email marketing data, so we could be more targeted with our engagement with those prospects. So this is where we see CDP tools, so custom data platforms, tagging management solutions play a strong role in sharing that data via the back end systems. The other part is around random acts of ABM. Um, Typically, ABM programs work well when there's sponsorship from a senior team. There's a strong steering committee that is working across multiple layers within your business. So therefore, you're pulling in the right people from across the company to ride in the right direction. And on that last point, we see embedding ABM across the company, across teams as key. So some of the things we see holding businesses back is ABM being within one single part of the marketing team, not involving sales, not involving the wider marketing uh, um, community within your company, and therefore not having cross-functional buy-in from all the roles that you need, whether people who own specific products, the website, channel owners, owners of specific parts of the sort of technology system. It works well when it's embedded across those different stakeholders. And another area is around navigating the unique challenges of targeting, enterprises versus small and mid-sized businesses. If you're looking to implement an ABM program because you want to target larger organizations, invariably they're more complex. They'll have multiple stakeholders, and that will have additional complexity around how you implement it, how you design your program, and how you track the engagement of those target enterprises across your digital channels. So how will your marketing change? Um, Personalization is one of those topics that has been coming up on reports for donkey's years, that it's top of mind for marketers in 2020, 2021, 2022. Um, but in terms of an ABM program, it does really matter. The whole point of an ABM program is to be more tailored and relevant to your audience, which is why there's a greater investment in time and resources from you as an organization. So personalization does matter, and there's no way of getting around that. A successful ABM program does require a higher degree of personalization. We do typically hear from organizations that personalization is a challenge. We lack resources to create all the different types of personalized content that we might need. And that puts off a lot of organizations. What we would typically say is to look at the personalization spectrum of what and how deep personalization could be. Look at your existing content that you have as a business, audit everything that you have. You may not need to reinvent the wheel with creating new content. You may just need to customize existing content based on the type of um, targets you want to go after. So it could be as simple as tailoring things like, PDFs to include sector-specific introductions, imagery, etc. But let's have a look at where we are, whether we're just doing purely generic-based personalization marketing to where we want to be. That which is why typically one-to-one personalization is allocated to a very small number of target accounts. The lower hanging fruit is to look at sector-based and industry-based personalization, because therefore we can look at common challenges which are relevant for a pharmaceutical company or an industrial-based manufacturer, and look to tailor imagery, copy at that level, and therefore it puts less strain on our current resources. Another way we see your marketing potentially changing is around customer journey orchestration. Um, ABM programs are like super great when have identified accounts we want to target. We've looked at the content we want to create. We've understood their challenges. We have the sort of back-end marketing platforms in place as we'll track and engage with people. We've set up our acquisition investments in terms of paid advertising to go after the right type of prospects. And then we see customer journey orchestration begin to play its way in terms of trying to understand how we will navigate those accounts and prospects around our sort of digital content and digital channels. So how will we re-engage them? What type of messaging will we play to that audience when they re-engage at a specific moment in time, whether it's online viewing content on the website, or whether they receive a specific triggered email from your marketing platforms, or whether they speak to a customer relationship manager, for example. Before we get onto ABM, I'm going to talk through briefly an example of an existing organization that who are doing, we feel, sort of have a great approach to account-based marketing. They're doing quite a lot of sophisticated stuff at the moment. So for those on the call who are not familiar with Capco, so Capco are a large financial services consultancy. They have offices across the globe. They are not a pure bank. They work with banks, so their target market is engaging with financial services institutions. And some of their challenges around their sort of customer acquisition, customer engagement, customer conversion was around a couple of areas. One, they produced a high volume of leads, but there was a big disconnect between the relationship those accounts would have offline with sales teams and then the engagements they would have digitally. So typically, they would speak to Capco's sales teams and have highly, personalized conversations based on understanding who their business is, what they were interested in. But when they came back and engaged with their digital channels, such as the website, it was a one-size-fits-all experience that had no understanding of the context of that account within the relationship of where they were with them as a business. And what we put in place with Capco, we've worked with Capco, I think, for about 7 or 8 years now. They have quite a highly developed marketing platform stack. So they've got things like Sitecore as their content management system. They have HubSpot for CRM, marketing automation. They have like Octopost for social, as well as a few other marketing tools. And one of the things we wanted to put in place is replicating the offline sales model online. So how could we recognize that a target company is engaging with them as a business, and then personalize every part of the digital journey, whether the website or email communication, based on understanding what service they were interested in, but also how deep they were in terms of that conversation with the business. So in terms of some Capco, they have the ability to ingest vast amounts of digital data within their platforms, because we integrated things like Sitecore with HubSpot, so capturing contact details, company information, what information was what sort of products or services were they looking at, writing data between the various marketing platforms. So, with content management systems like Sitecore, sharing data between HubSpot and Sitecore. And then one of the things we put in place was, which is we feel is quite unusual, is at basic level, a lead scoring system, but it was a lead scoring system which allowed an individual, when they re-engage with the website, for example, to serve personalized content based on data held within a CRM system. So if they were from, say, Deutsche Bank, for example, and had inquired for a specific service and had got to, say, the proposal stage, we wanted a lead scoring system which would identify who they were and that they were, say, a warm or hot prospect. And when they returned to the website, we wanted to customize copy imagery for that specific bank and sector. and put the type of content, whether it's thought leadership content that will help them inform their sort of decision making about working with this organization, sort of front and center. So treating the website as a continual um, um, sort of sales warm-up machine to engage, nurture those prospects, and then triggering personalized emails as well. We're going to talk about where AI meets account-based marketing. So typically, this is something which you may not get into from day one, but it's something that we will know that will come up in conversation pretty quick. AI seems to be top of mind for everyone for obvious reasons. There are more and more practical use cases for AI within organizations. So we're going to cover off some of the sort of the key practical areas we see insight analytics, account selection, stakeholder profiling, etc. We're going to go through these and have a look at how these could apply to your program. So insights and analysis. So before the advent of things like AI, analyzing large data sets required a lot of manual effort, custom machine learning solutions, which could be time consuming and costly. And obviously that's changing now with the introduction of powerful AI tools. So for B2B marketers, this shift means we can attain a deeper understanding of customer behavior, preferences, and engagement history uh, without having to rely on sort of manual means. What this really means is, from an ABM perspective, we can lean on AI to help assist in analyzing sort of key areas such as the engagement history of accounts with our brand, customer segmentation tailored for those specific campaigns. Looking at analyzing all the marketing touches and sales interactions that target accounts are having and where they are in the customer journey, and then using these insights to help inform sort of the next phase of our program. The next area is around sort of enhancing account selection. So AI is a super powerful tool that can analyze, your data sets to identify accounts that are most likely to convert. So this means that our investment in time, effort, and budget can be allocated on the highest potential prospects. So from an ABM perspective, this means the account selection process can follow a structured approach. So we can start by analyzing and using those tools to help out analyze the total addressable market using external data. We could perhaps look at including things like annual results for those target companies, news, publicly available news, investments in different types of technologies, which helps us to determine our ideal customer profile fit and begin to automate that process. And then we can begin to draw down on those insights from our own internal data, such as feedback that we're getting from sales teams on the type of businesses we want to engage with, and then begin to try and balance these AI-driven insights with sort of the human input from our wider teams as well, so we have a balanced approach. Enhanced stakeholder profiling. As we know, understanding who our key decision maker is is key. And generative AI is a great tool that can help us create sort of detailed profiles of these individuals, offering valuable insights into their roles, preferences, pain points, etc. And by automating this profiling process, we can achieve deeper analysis and efficiency. So how can AI tools assist us at this part of the journey? First, they can analyze CRM data to identify decision makers and influencers within our target accounts. They can track the market engagement of these stakeholders, giving us a sort of clearer picture around their interactions. We can plumb in external sources like LinkedIn to enhance our profiles of our targets. We can use AI to analyze language, sentiment analysis around sort of public communications. And then we can identify sort of key professional contacts within our target organizations and plumb them into sort of our advertising outreach so we can be super more targeted. One key application of ABM is of AI in ABM is in creating sort of data-driven customer journeys. And we talked about earlier on customer journey orchestration, and this is where AI begins to play a part in automating that again. perhaps in the future. But again, understanding where this could take us, I think is important. So this connects closely to stakeholder profiling, where we utilize external and internal CRM data to develop those detailed buying personas. And from there, we can begin to determine the next steps in orchestrating that customer journey. So looking at sort of those journey triggers. So this allows us to identify the most relevant and timely experience to guide customers across those journeys. And this could be, what type of messaging should appear at what moment for a customer. What is the type of thing that we believe that push them through to the next stage to perhaps inquire, to reach out, to speak to us as an organization. And refining messaging. So with generative tools like, say, Jasper AI, you can begin to lean on these tools to scale content creation. So for more targeted personalization. So combining and automating the creation of copy. Because as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest blockers we've always heard around personalization and scaling is around the time that we require for your marketing teams, your copywriters to sit down and create these. So tools are coming into the market, which will allow you to scale those efforts. And I'm going to finish on a final one, which is around enhanced measurement and optimization. We mentioned before, so metrics are always, in any type of organization, super important. But in terms of how AI can help is around using AI in terms of real-time predictive analytics to identify insights for ongoing optimization. So this could be leveraging tools that use existing marketing automation platforms, just CRM systems, plumbing that data in, analyzing, pulling that data into dashboards to identify opportunities for your marketing teams to then dynamically change the approach of your marketing platform, your ABM programs for, say, the quarter ahead. Looking to utilize AI and data to analyze which touch points are being driving the strongest conversions, whether a specific point of the customer journey, perhaps there's a single bottleneck of your website, for example, that's holding prospects back. AI and data will allow us to narrow in and identify those so we can begin to tweak and optimize our programs. It will allow us to identify the type of offers which have been historically driving the highest conversions at either a sector level or an account level. So again, we could begin to then leverage those insights and begin to tweak and optimize our program, as well as plumbing in the metrics that we defined at the start of the strategy, and then sharing that data within the business so we can answer that question which comes up always and will never go away, which is we've spent all this time and money investment on this initiative, and was it worth the effort? And AI in the future will play an important part in helping you justify or not that investment in the program. So we covered off quite a lot today. I really appreciate people taking the time to join us on today's presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to send these through. Happy to run through these and get back to you with some answers in the next day or so. As I said, today's session was recorded. Happy to send this over. Happy to share the slides. And as always, really appreciative of people taking the time out of the day to join us for today's presentation. So thank you, and hope to see you on the next session that will be running in a few more weeks. So take care now, everyone. Bye-bye.